Good morning, mommies. We are back after what I hope was a 3-day weekend for you. I hope you guys got outside. It's summer. And we've got a lot to talk about here today because things happened over the weekend. First on the docket, the Pope gives his first encyclical, like a letter to the public, and he has feelings about AI. So I think he watches the moment. Then we're going to talk about Hassan Piker, who got subpoenaed by the Trump administration. And he also sat down with Ashley St. Clair, and I watched it so you don't have to. And it made me uncomfortable. But we'll talk about it. And then we are speaking about the DNC autopsy, among other things, with David Hogg, who you will know as somebody who's been in the Democratic Party in the leadership, and now he does a group called Leaders We Deserve, the Leaders We Deserve. So you brought the Pope to my attention, Meredith.
Of course, as I often do.
As you often do.
I'm so excited about this encyclical that Pope Leo wrote. So to give people a little bit of context on what an encyclical is, it's something that popes come out with usually towards like the first couple of years of when they become pope. That's going to kind of set the tone, at least for Pope Leo is probably going to have, knock on wood, a very long reign as pope. So when Pope Leo releases an encyclical, it's really to sort of ground him in what are like the big issues that he's thinking about and also the issues of the present moment. Pope Francis had an encyclical called Laudato Si that was very well known, very beloved. It was really focused on climate change, but also care of the poor. And so it really set the tone for Francis's time as Pope. Okay. So Pope Leo has released an encyclical that is really about AI and this burgeoning technology. And I think what's really interesting about it is that it's kind of all coming together. So Pope Leo, the last Pope Leo that we had was a Pope who was the Pope during the Industrial Revolution.
Interesting.
And he released an encyclical that was kind of like, hey guys, I know it's exciting, but let's remember where we kind of stand. And this document, his encyclical, is kind of the basis of Catholic social teaching in the church as it is today. So it's really interesing for
like OG Pope Leo.
Yes, the
Got
18,
Old Pope Leo.
Yes, like turn of the century, like, maybe the kid Lydia shouldn't be working in the factory. Do you remember that book?
No.
There was like this book about this little girl who like worked in a factory. I don't know. It's either here. I can't believe you didn't read that book.
I bet I did. And
somebody
you'll
here
put it in front of me and I'll be like, oh, little Lydia in the factories.
Yeah, it was not good for her. I think anyway, we won't get into it. But he released an encyclical, but he also released it like with the CEO of Anthropic present. And so like his whole kind of thing is that like he really wants this to be a dialogue, but he is cautioning people. His concerns around AI are like a lot of the ones that a lot of us have, which are like, he's concerned about its effect on workers. He's concerned about its effect on children. And he's concerned about the way in which it's like increasing this growing wealth gap. Right. So I think one of the things that I find really interesting about this is like in this world where if people have a different, even slightly opinion these days, people are like, I'm done with them. And it's like, for Pope Leo to come forward and to release this encyclical and be with the CEO of Anthropic, he's kind of saying like, hey, we can have these really difficult conversations. So anyway, I'm really excited for it. I think it's really, setting the tone for what, I guess this is my point. The long way of saying this is like, well, AI has, there's Catholic social teaching about AI now. And so how are we as a country going to respond to that?
Interesting. So, okay, my first question is, how often do they put out the encyclical? Like, did he decide to do this in this moment on his own accord, or was he following some sort of schedule?
I mean, it's kind of standard that like, you get into the job. It's kind of like saying like, hey, you started a new job, kind of check out the lay of the land. And after about a year, you should have an idea of what the biggest issue is here because it is such a big job. After like 3 months, your boss might sit you down and say, okay, what are you seeing here that's a problem? It's basically that. And that's the same way that Pope Leo did it with Laudato Si.
Got it. So this really is him saying a year in, I think the big issue of our time is AI. Wow. Interesting. I also wonder, like, how much do you think this affects people's thinking? Because I saw this and I was like, I wonder, because we just talked on the show about how Mel Robbins and Reese Witherspoon. And I'm like, I'm wondering if like that will affect the people who are speaking in favor of AI.
Well, can I just say, I'm not seeing a lot of Catholics talk about it.
Oh.
Like, you know what I mean? I think Reese Witherspoon screams WASP to me.
Oh, totally.
Like that's,
Yeah.
and so does Mel Robbins.
And so does Mel Robbins. Oh,
I
big
don't
time.
know about Mel Robbins, but I'm just saying, like, you know, the people who I'm seeing go so hard for AI are not the Stephen Colberts of the world. So I just think that there's something, you know, if you really are rooted in Catholic social teaching, then you are going to already have been thinking about this.
Okay.
And so, like, I think that's where a lot of my sort of thought comes from. It is like going to Catholic school, being raised Catholic, et cetera, is like, I'm concerned about, you know, care of the poor. Where does that fall in this? And so I don't know, though, how it will react with MAGA Catholics, because I think this is only going to further the division that MAGA Catholics,
JD Vance think about all this?
MAGA Catholics they didn't like Pope Francis. They don't like Pope Leo. So I think this is just going to continue. It's only further cementing the dislike that Pope Leo has in the church. I mean, Pope Leo is, again, in a way, he is again pushing back against the Trump administration with this, whether he will admit that or not. You know, the Trump administration has made huge investments in AI. They have a whole AI.gov. I was on it yesterday. It's a photo of Trump just like walking down.
Really?
Like, yeah, like AI.go on it. It's like a bizarre website. But this is, again, I think another way that Pope Leo, he would never say this, but he's sticking it to Trump with this, right?
Yeah.
Isn't this a bizarre website?
It's very bizarre. I also, you know, it's interesting, you know, like I'm like the queen of politics podcasts and politics think pieces.
Yeah.
And, you know, you start to see, because, you know, I think all of these people are sort of in dialogue with one another in some ways, including myself, right?
Sure.
Like you hear what other people say and you're like, what do I think about that? And I keep hearing all of these podcasts talk about how AI is going to be the big issue in the next election. Like this is one of the thoughts the thought worms that have crept up everywhere. And, you know, it's
like in what capacity though?
Well, I think that what people are seeing is because of all of the, you know, graduation speeches that have gotten booed with the AI. I think that they're seeing for the first time, you know, like this is really one of the first technologies that has had like a genuine pushback from the people. You know, like I think people have said, oh, well, the internet, but it's not really true. If you look at the data.
I know. People were like not that hesitant about the internet.
I think people were not in the same way.
I think we were excited too, because it was also like little by little. Like it was like, oh, you can email. That's cool.
Yeah. And I think that AI, I don't know. I've seen data in passing that it's just like, I think AI, people are genuinely scared of AI. And so I think what you said is true, is like this becomes a labor issue, which people do really care about. And so, yeah, I think it's because all of these, you know, graduation speeches, it's funny to watch, you know, like the Google founder was like, and you're gonna have to learn AI.
Do you think they're getting paid?
You know, I mean, like the Google, okay, so this is something that's interesting too, is a friend of mine texted me and she was like, what are we gonna do about Google? And I was like, what are you talking about? And this week, I believe today, Google is retiring its like classic search engine and putting forth
like an AI, like, so you basically only have the AI option.
Exactly.
I don't know. What am I going to go on? Bing?
Well, that's what she was saying.
A 2006 episode of Gossip Girl?
Right. Like Ask Jeeves? Yeah. Like what is happening over here? But so to that point, Steve Schmidt, I think it's like, he doesn't have to be paid for it in order to be personally benefiting.
That's true. Him, yes. There are other people though that I was like, I feel like this is a kickback or something. Like you don't need to talk about AI. But I will say this. I'm concerned about it in the election just because like yesterday I was on Facebook. Don't ask me why, because like I don't know, have something wrong with it. No, because we put our clips up on Facebook.
Yeah.
And most of the comments are like, die. And I'm like, I'm on my way. But I was looking at some of the posts on there, and one of them was an AI picture, but it was quite convincing, of Caitlyn Jenner, but transitioned back to Bruce at a Trump rally.
Wrong on every level.
Right? And so it was like, look what the Republican Party has done. We have brought back Bruce.
Oh, interesting.
And so it was an image of what Bruce would probably look like
Yeah,
if they hadn't transitioned, if she hadn't, which is total like okay. I feel it's weird to even say how to say it, but basically like an image of what Bruce might look like now. And people were like, "Hooray, you've done your job, Republican Party." And so I was just like,
Ooh.
"Oh, like that's gonna really fuck with people if they think like, oh my God, this is."
I think people are just starting to see it everywhere and they don't like it. Like it's just, it's not a technology
Do you
that
think
feels
people don't like it? Like, I feel like some people would see that and then they would say, they'd look at the photo and they'd be like, oh, well, that's what I hope for Bruce. Like, I think there are people who say that.
I think young people, what I was going to say is
Okay.
it'll be interesting to talk to David Hogg, because I feel like whenever I see people in Congress talk about the internet in any way or technology, they're always like, do you remember there was a senator who was like, why is my granddaughter on this? Like they're always like a step behind, and AI is so far ahead. I'm like, who even will be capable of talking about AI in a way that resonates with young people in 2028? You know what I mean?
When I tell you that I have used it to do math.
Yeah. Well, I know I do use it to do math.
Listen, that is actually the fault of my 6th grade math teacher, Mrs. 40, who they brought in because the science teacher and the old math teacher were having an affair. So they hired this like woman. Yeah.
Did you know I had a math nightmare last night? It's
Get
so
out.
weird that
I brought up Mrs. 40, my 6th grade math teacher.
Nobody wants to hear about this, but I had a math nightmare last night because I also need AI to do math. Apparently.
Dude, listen.
Well, to that end, also, I like, not to be like, think of the children, but like our education system is already a mess. Like I'll use AI every once in a while, but it's not like, it's like my brain, and then I'm using AI to like check my grammar or, or like, I don't even know, like, or like do basic math. But I'm thinking about children that never will get the ability to develop that muscle and think for themselves, and like probably immediately start to go to AI. I'm curious how that works. Like in terms of regulating it, is like how we can't even regulate social media for children.
Well, and one of the things that Pope Leo says is like, we need to regulate. That's a big part of this encyclical, is we need to regulate. And I think it's really interesting because, there's also like a lot of criticism against regulating the like things around the internet. Like, Taylor Lorenz is like really against that. Was it like Section 230, like regulating that? And like, that's one way that the Republican Party has been saying like, oh, it's like how they're going to get rid of like corn and things of that nature. But I'm like, okay, well, where does regulating AI fit into that? Because I feel like that should be a very separate conversation, but I think they're kind of getting lumped together when people are like, we need to regulate technology. And I'm like,
these are very different technologies.
Right. And so I'd be curious to know what she thinks on that.
I know, we should ask her. That's true. I also think some of this is like, this is what the government used to be about. Like, you used to talk about politics and it would be like, generally Republicans don't want to regulate things. They want like as much free market capitalism as possible. And the left wants the government oversight for things. And that used to be sort of like the political divides of like how, which like I'm on the side of government regulation often, but now it's like our politics are so bonkers insane. Like we don't know what any of these parties want to do or,
Right. Like the idea, there's that AI PAC that tried to pay me like thousands of dollars to make a video that was like, beat China. I was like what? In what? USA Gymnastics? Like, I don't know. I'm not ready for this. But anyway, I looked more into them and they're not, it's like, it's very 50-50 on who they're supporting.
Yeah.
My son just had to take his college final in old school blue books because it's the only way the professor can ensure the students aren't using AI. Yeah, I know.
But I think that's great.
Well, yes and no, because I was talking to my niece recently and she's in college and I was like, oh, like, what do you prefer, papers or exams? And she's like, oh, we basically, and she's like not liberal art, but she's like a poli-sci major. She's like, oh, we basically like can't have papers anymore because of AI. So everything basically has to be an exam now. Sucks. And I was like, honestly, as I'm a papers girl.
Yeah, I'm a papers girl.
Like, because I have like test anxiety.
The last exam, well, I guess I took the GREs, but the last exam I took really was freshman year of college. And then I was like, oh, give me a 15-page paper every single time.
Right. And so I was like, that actually sucks. Yeah. Because there's plenty of people who don't want to use AI.
But the writing and the, like, maybe we'll have, and we got to move topics, but like maybe we'll have a backlash where you know, like I remember learning cursive in school. You know?
Jesus.
And like I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's good for your brain. You know,
You
like
think
it's
cursive is, I think like a nice print is good for you.
I know, but practicing like writing with your hand in a way that's like an expression
writing.
of
For
you
sure. Free
is
writing.
like
Kids should be free writing and they should be reading. I was saying to I went to lunch with a friend yesterday. I said, I think that like her kids in like sixth grade. And I was like, I don't really think sixth graders should have homework. I think they should be told to go home and like free write or
100%,
read.
100%.
Free write and read.
Yeah.
That's all you fucking need to do.
100%. Okay, before we get to our guests, let's quickly talk about Hassan Piker. So
talk about free write and read.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, I watched his live stream for the first time in full. Like I've seen parts of it before and like, ooh, yeah, maybe somebody needs more exams. So first, federal investigators are probing Hassan Piker for his involvement for going to Cuba in March and bringing them aid.
Why is that an issue? Like this is the one thing, like, you know, I was catching up on Hassan and I was like, so why is this an issue?
Well, what they are alleging is that he broke U.S. sanctions. U.S. has like formal sanctions against Cuba. And by going and like giving them business and staying in a hotel there and talking to the regime, he's like treason, you know, like you're breaking, you're not supposed to do.
I didn't realize that our sanctions against Cuba were that strong right now.
Oh yeah, I mean it's really
sad. But like 6 years ago, you could have gone to Cuba.
I did go to Cuba.
Right, no, but I mean, like, you know, everybody like I know who were like, you were going there for work, but I had friends who were going there
for fun,
for vacation, on cruises and whatever.
No, it's totally different now. It's like there was this thawing period under Obama, and things were opening up for the Cubans, and then the Trump administration came in and clamped it down again, and then it's gotten even worse. So he's been subpoenaed over this, and part of my belief is like this is about escalation in Cuba. Is like we're seeing them try to bring Iran to an end because the Strait of Hormuz has created such issues with oil prices, and I think Trump likes having a war, and I think that I think he's escalating in Cuba, and I think this is part of it. And it's interesting that he chose Hassan because I feel like he doesn't really have allies in any political direction. Like Chuck Schumer's not coming to Hassan Piker's defense, right?
Does he know how hot Hassan is?
Chuck Schumer?
No. Chuck Schumer definitely does.
Wait, you know who else knows is, okay, so then this is the other part.
But like, I mean, when Trump sees what a handsome man Hassan is, it's all going to change for Hassan.
Well, that's the thing is Hassan, I think this is part of what's interesting, and we're not going to, you know, we have got lots to get to, but I also see this as like the great reshuffling of internet personalities.
Yeah.
Because Hassan, you know, definitely on the left in terms of his ideals, but like he presents himself in a very like right-wing influencers. He's like this muscly guy. He says what he thinks. He's like, you know, a maverick. And now Ashley St. Clair, who was like a right-wing influencer for many years, and then had Elon Musk's baby and was sort of like chewed up and spit out by the right wing, has been doing like a little left-wing tour, and she was on.
She goes in right after Hunter Biden. It's like, oh, there's Ashley, and here comes Hunter.
Well, that's interesting too. Is that right? Hunter Biden went on Candace Owens and had his place. By the way, I was like watching this man, and I was like, this is like VH1's perfect. Remember, VH1 had like all these washed up.
I watched him on Soft White Underbelly, and I cried twice.
For his what? For his soul, his Catholic soul.
No, I think like just we both lost our moms when we were young, and when he talks about it, like I just think it's like you know, it hits me in that same place.
Yeah,
and he's like, you can say whatever you want about my dad's politics, but he's like, my dad is a good dad, and I'm like, no one will ever say that about Trump.
Not one
like,
person.
No one,
yeah,
I do believe that Joe Biden is a good father who loves his children, which like I mean, at the end of the day, I guess that's like the bare minimum.
Yeah,
but like,
well, he pardoned him at the end of the day,
right?
But okay, so really quickly, Ashley St. Clair.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting because you could tell she was sort of like using her same sort of like, I don't know, whatever, you know, ingratiating she did with Elon Musk with Hassan Piker. And you could sort of feel the same, you know, like pick me energy of being like, Hassan.
They're feeling each other. Okay.
It was really, it was more she was feeling him.
Okay.
It like that was my impression. But I do feel like with all of the, with Tucker Carlson, with Candace Owen, there's this great reshuffling that I feel like we are not fully prepared for. Like there is no left versus right anymore. It's like personalities finding the different factions within this two-party system. And they're all shuffling around. It's very, very
What do you think
odd.
Candace is identifying as these days?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think she's probably like America firsty. You know, I think she's probably like Tucker Carlson. She's
Okay.
really angry at the Trump administration. She's really, really angry at Israel and like Jews in general, I would say. And, you know, like I watched hers too. And she's basically like, how do we make the news into true crime? Which is exciting for her audience. But somebody who maybe has like a more earthly bound touch on how politics works is David Hogg. I feel like he's somebody that we've like watched for many, many years. He's the co-founder of March for Our Lives, an organization that has led one of the largest youth movements in our country. He more recently co-founded Leaders We Deserve. It's an organization dedicated to getting young progressive candidates who refuse corporate money into Congress and state legislatures across the country. David Hogg, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's good to see you.
Look at that background.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, our team at Leaders We Deserve did a great job on a shoestring budget to put this together.
Damn.
Well, we were saying that before we came in. We were like, you know, David Hogg knows how to talk to the internet. You know, like we have so many people come on that we're like, we're going to have to like pull this conversation out. And like, you know, every once in a while, a Democratic leader will be like, yeah, fuck that. We're like, oh, they really said it. But David Hogg is ready for prime time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. Okay, let's start with, okay. You were the DNC vice chair for a moment. There was a moment where we thought you were going to be in there, but you stepped aside when there were a bunch of disputes with the establishment over plans to primary some of the incumbents. So to that end, let's talk about the DNC autopsy report. Yeah, so you were on the inside of the DNC. You probably saw some of this come to light. Were you surprised by what came out last week? Let's start there.
I mean, I will say this much. I was expecting there to at least be a conclusion included in the report. What was a bit, surprising to me, though, I'm sure to many people outside of the, that obviously were not inside of the rooms that I was in, it was of no surprise that there was no mention of Gaza, Palestine, inflation, Joe Biden's age, or anything like that. But, to be honest with you, I was a bit surprised by it because when I brought those things up inside of the rooms at the DNC, when we first sat down in the building for our meeting of the officers after the election, and we were starting to go over some of the preliminary results that the autopsy was going to talk about, I mentioned to them, I remember verbatim saying to the officers, I know you guys don't want to talk about this, but if you're going to talk about young voters, you have to talk about the issue that tens of thousands of them were protesting about on their college campuses throughout the election, which was the genocide that was happening, that is still happening in Gaza. And to my surprise, they all said, no, David, we absolutely should talk about that. You're totally right. We do want to talk about it. And then we see this report where it is not mentioned a single time. And not only that, there's no mention of Joe Biden's age, no mention of inflation, no mention of any of the issues that actually affected the election. And on top of that, to not even have a fully completed report that the chair, Ken Martin, had to put out there and say, I'm not proud of this report. You won't be proud of this report. Why even bother putting it out in the first place and not just say, you know what, this was not good, we have to redo it, instead of putting out whatever the hell that was. And for that reason, that's why Chair Ken Martin needs to resign as chair of the DNC.
Okay, so you're calling for his resignation. We're going to get to that. But I have a couple more questions. I want to know, what was the conclusion in the 2016 DNC autopsy? Do we know what people were sort of like, hey, this is where we went wrong in that one?
To be honest with you, I don't think that we even actually did one in 2016. The Republican, this is the more crazy thing about this to me. This is something that the DNC doesn't always do. This is something that Chair Yes.
Sorry,
This is something that Chair Ken Martin ran on doing and said, to help reestablish trust and transparency in the DNC and the Democratic Party, we're going to release an autopsy. So nobody forced him to do this. He ran on doing this as he was running for chair of the DNC, and then produced this absolutely bullshit report that was incomplete at the same time. So clearly he did a great job of reestablishing trust in the Democratic Party and our brand based off of not only the fact that this report was not completed, but off of our current approval ratings, which are in the toilet right next to Donald Trump's.
That is insane. Because like if you and I do a show and it doesn't go well, we're like, we should probably watch it and see where it went wrong. If we do a show and it's amazing, like when you win in 2020, you should still probably look back and go, okay, where did we go right? Where could we do better in 2024? They don't have to go back and look at their work. Like, what the fuck?
Well, the DNC, I feel like, can you very briefly explain what the DNC does? Because I do think people think that the DNC is like the overlord of it, but it's like they're more like an organizing committee. David, can you explain what the DNC does?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, there's a lot of people who I will say I think blame them for things that they aren't really responsible for in the first place. The DNC doesn't have any real role in congressional elections. They don't have any real role in Senate elections, state legislative elections, or anything like that. Their job is to help manage and fund state parties around the country, to help make sure that our presidential primary goes well, to set the rules of the debates, the debates and the schedule of the debates. And that's basically a lot of it. And managing the platform is obviously part of it too. And one of the things that it absolutely, in my opinion, should be is kind of like, how after there's a plane crash, they have that whole committee of experts that come out and talk in very monotone professional voice about, well, this is why the wing fell off or whatever the hell it is. To the DNC's credit, that is something that they are in a position to be able to do, to actually hold people across the party accountable and say, look, after we lost an election to a convicted felon for the second time, and we spent $3 billion doing so, this is what went wrong. That's what we should be doing. We should have an impartial committee of people that come together and say, here's what actually went wrong. Like, love it or hate it, this is what the data showed us, and we have to live with that. But ultimately, they couldn't even do that in this report. And that's all, what happened with the DNC in particular, with my case, was I announced that I was going to challenge Democratic incumbents because I felt like, it's so easy to criticize institutions like the DNC. It's much harder to actually try to fix them. I wanted to be part of the solution of trying to fix them. And clearly, when I looked around a room of people when I was first running, and I saw at the executive committee that there was not one person under the age of 30, despite the fact that the first thing that they brought up after the election as to why they lost was 18 to 29-year-old voters. That's why I decided to throw my hat in the ring. And it became clear when I was in rooms that they were not actually serious about addressing the real issues that decided the election. And I felt that it was more important for us to change not just what we say in our party, but what our values are, and also who our party is. And that is our candidates. And that's why we do the work we do at Leaders We Deserve, to get great young people elected. After I was kicked out of the DNC, I went on and spent $300,000 in support of Zoran's campaign for New York City mayor. And with that work, we've seen tens of thousands of people get inspired and sign up to run for office. And he helped to get young people to turn out and vote for him. But if you want to understand why things at the DNC in reports like this don't include a lot of the major issues, it's because A, they don't want to piss off donors that don't want to hear the issues that actually decided the election, like inflation. Because frankly, think about it. If you're a rich guy that has hundreds of thousands of dollars to give to a group like the DNC, most of your money isn't cash. It's in assets. Right. And as inflation goes up, the stock market's going up. Your house value is going up. You actually feel like the economy is doing great. Meanwhile, most Americans that don't own stocks feel like they're getting crushed by it. So it creates this disconnect. And then the other thing is, there are people like Mike Donnellan, who were a senior advisor to the presidential campaign, that got paid $4 million to lose the election. And now the DNC is $3 million in debt. I think if we had a real report, it would talk about the people that made millions of dollars off of shitting the bed in this election, and they would actually be held accountable. But our party is allergic to that accountability, and that's why we do what we do at Leaders We Deserve. We're able, because of our small dollar donors, to throw aside the people that say, you can't support somebody like Zoran because it's going to be the end of the world. Because we have so many small dollar donors, we can go and support them in a substantial way and not have to fear losing tons of financial support in the way that the DNC often does.
It does feel like a little bit egoic. There was somebody that he's not in the DNC, but he's sort of an older creator. And I actually generally respect him. But he was, pushing back on AOC, saying we need to look at Gaza. And he was like, that was only important to people on the internet, college campuses, and in Michigan. And I was like, so you mean people who get their information on the internet, first-time voters, and people in a key swing state? Like, feels like we should probably look into that. I am wondering, like, one of the things that comes off of that, we were just talking about Hassan Piker before you came on, and sort of like the reshuffling of internet personalities and like the parties in general. And something we've seen a lot with him recently is he's started campaigning in Democratic primaries for people, which is he's become like this like contentious, like should the Democrats, you know, get with him, or is he the Nick Fuentes of the left? And what are we doing? I'm wondering what you think as somebody who's like observing young people in this space, whether this is a space for.
Let's cut to the chase. Should Hassan be the chair of the Democratic of the DNC?
Well, I think it would be a tough election there, unfortunately, because it's an institution committed to basically changing as little as possible and not actually fundamentally addressing a lot of the issues that cause our party to lose over and over again. Like the fact that part of the reason why elections cost so much is because of the shitty policies that both Democrats and Republicans are voting for that undermine everyday Americans' ability to get by in this country and undermine the American dream, which then those corporations that want those policies to be passed go and fund more elections, to which those elected officials say, oh, we need more money to get more voters because we need to gaslight the country into believing that we're for the working class when they're not, over and over and over again. And the question that I think we should be focused on isn't necessarily, well, what is Hassan Piker's role in the Democratic Party? I think the question is, why do we continue to take money from the very people that are undermining the constituents that we say we represent? That's what actually matters to me a hell of a lot more than where Hassan Piker is in the Democratic Party, because we have an opportunity of a lifetime in this party to set a clear sign here that our party is the one of anti-corruption, that we stand against Citizens United, that we stand against giving $1.7 billion to insurrectionists, right? That's the other thing. That's the other crazy thing about when this report came out. It was as that fund was announced, which helped to draw a lot of attention away from the fact that Donald Trump, as we've seen with his insider trading, as we've seen with the ridiculous fund that he set up, the insurrectionist fund and all this other stuff, that this is purely a grift for them. And our party has the opportunity, even if we had the most basic level of competence, to show voters we actually can properly represent them and fight back against Republicans. But that's not going to change until we start wholeheartedly rejecting the influence of corporations in our elections and going out there and saying, yes, there is a segment, especially of younger Democrats, that are not younger versions of the same people that have been in power forever, but actually are better versions of Democrats that properly represent what we all know our party could be, but thus far has failed to be. The party that stands up for working class people and rejects the influence of the special interests that have fucked over the American people over and over and over and over again, and says we are here to actually stand up for normal people and not corporations. And that's why we do what we do at Leaders We Deserve. But I want you guys to understand why things are this way. And a prime example is some of the calls that I got after we supported Zoran. At Leaders We Deserve, we were Zoran's the largest financial supporter in terms of organizations in his primary, cutting him a check for $300,000. I got calls from multiple major donors after that said, I cannot give you several $100,000 like I did in the previous election cycle because you supported Zoran. Most people don't have what we have at Leaders We Deserve in the Democratic Party, which is an army of grassroots donors that support us so that we have the independence to support Democrats that actually excite the American people and show the power of what good governance and progressive governance can do, instead of just doing whatever the donors want over and over and over again. Because they're constantly in a game where if you go out and piss off major donors, you're going to end up undermining your very own funding, which is the thing that helps to keep somebody like Ken Martin in power in the long term.
Well, let me say this. First of all, I want to offer you a little mantra we have here at the Moment Live, and that is Hassan sometimes. I think Hassan is great for certain things, but it doesn't have to, I think people are keeping is Hassan the future or not? And it's well, why can't we look to Hassan for some things and then look to other people for other things? But I guess my question to you is totally get it. I get what you're saying. We're here in Los Angeles. We're here in California. We've got some big races going on. I don't know if you've heard, but somehow the Hills has been resurrected. Okay. So we have candidates here who, I will say Nithya Raman is a young candidate. She's not Zoran. She's not progressive the way that Zoran is. When she first came into the race, we kind of felt maybe is she LA's Zoran? She's not. Okay. Maybe she will be at some point, but she's not in this election.
She doesn't seem able to articulate what that would be for LA.
Exactly.
Whether or not she has those feelings.
Right. Yeah. And now we have our mayor's race, which kind of feels like Spencer, and then some more traditionalists. Then we have our governor's race, which feels like a lot of, even though I know Tom Steyer will say, I'm not a career politician. Tom Steyer does not feel like the progressive left-wing Zoran type governor.
Although he's trying to sell it.
I know he is, but I'm not buying. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that it's bad, but I'm just saying I'm not buying that. So like when we're this far into it, David, right? It is what? Almost June. The midterms are coming up. We don't have these progressive candidates here in LA and in California. So what are we supposed to do right now? Like, are we fucked for November?
No. And it's because there are actually some progressive candidates around California that I would look at. Look at, they're just not getting that much attention. In particular, there's some of the races that Leaders We Deserve is involved in. So like Mai Vang is a progressive challenging Doris Matsui, an incumbent Democrat that took a max out check from AIPAC and has taken a ton of money from defense contractors. And Mai Vang is somebody that passed the nation's first ever safe haven resolution when she was on the school board in Sacramento to help in the first Trump administration protect students and parents from ICE. And then you also have somebody like Randy Villegas, who has grown so much in popularity and support that the D-Trip, the Democratic establishment, what I think people often criticize the DNC as being, but actually is the D-Trip, the committee that gets involved in House primaries, is going after Randy Villegas because they want to prop up a moderate candidate who voted against Prop 50. Her name's, oh my God.
This is in Bakersfield, right? This is out in the Bakersfield. Yes, yeah. I've been seeing this. Yeah. I mean, I guess the point is like our two biggest races.
Super moderate. Like the point being, there are progressives that are running around California. They're just not getting that much attention because the governor's race and mayoral races and executive positions are sucking up all the oxygen. But Prop 50 has opened up the opportunity for a lot of new opportunities.
Yeah.
What do you think about, so I feel like Spencer, this is like my hot take, is I think in some ways Spencer has taken the Zoran space in the LA mayoral race because what he's done is run as a populist who says, I understand what's going on with you. But like, he's also like, people are going to hate this. He's MAGA aligned. I want to play a clip. He recently came out and talked about why he switched to the Republican Party. And I want to play it really quick.
Like, you were never a Democrat though. Like
he says he voted. He says he was. I mean, like, look, whatever. Let's play it. I'm curious what you think
reality
about
star. Yeah. I got so many death threats. I had so much security and police. And what did they tell me to do? Get a gun. This is real. I know people don't like guns, but LA was dangerous if you're hated. So I got a gun. My wife got a gun. And then we needed CCWs. The only people that supported a CCW was the Republican. That was what I aligned with, my safety, my personal safety, my family's safety. I know people don't like guns, but when people are threatening your life and your own security is telling you need to have home protection, train, it's not like just I went to the, go through the proper steps. That was my, that's it.
And that was it. And you felt like that party was more pro Second Amendment.
And I know that's a very hot button, but here's the thing. I'm also going to be the mayor that puts LAPD in front of every school to make schools safe from guns. Right now we have.
All right. As somebody who, came to the forefront of the nation in a tragic, horrific gun violence situation, I wonder what you think about that. He's, the populist here in LA.
Look, I don't know a whole lot aside from the clip that you just showed me about this mayoral race at all. What I can tell you is that having protested LAPD before when I was just 19 years old with some of my friends that were very active in the police reform and racial justice movement, and given the history of that police department and policing in general, oftentimes we see that police officers in schools can be more of a danger to students than anything, right? Let's be very clear about that, because in LA, like in every other community in America, the number one place that children are most likely to die in general from gun violence is not in their schools, it's outside of it. And obviously police gun violence is still gun violence that, happens when they're killing unarmed Americans. Look, obviously, it's horrifying that he's lived through those kinds of death threats and had to live with that kind of fear. Nobody's family should have to deal with that, obviously, in the first place. But it speaks to the broader overall need of national reform in our country, because on guns, because we know a lot of the guns that come into LA that theoretically a dangerous person might be using that previously was prohibited under California state law could easily be coming from Nevada or coming from some other state that California has no jurisdiction over in the first place. And we need to attack it from the top down and the bottom up. People obviously need to feel safe. And the way that we do that is we do everything in our power to stop interstate gun trafficking. And that means Congress needs to take more action on that.
Yeah. Congress needs to take action on literally anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything and everything. We are so grateful for your time. Can you remind folks where they can find you?
Yeah, people can find they can find me on social media. Just look up David Hogg with 2 G's. The other thing is they can support our work at Leaders We Deserve. Like I said, we don't do the work of major donors here at Leaders We Deserve. We work for the 250,000 people that support our work, that give us $5 or $10 a month. And the number one way people can help us is with a sustaining donation of just $1 or $5 or $10 a month at leaderswedeserve.com. That gives us the stability to go out and find all these candidates running for state legislature, running for Congress that can help bring forward the next generation, to give people a real sense of hope that they can be properly represented. Because I just want people to know it doesn't have to be this way. Things don't have to suck. We can make it better. Zoran showed us that. And a lot of these younger candidates around the country have the opportunity to do that, but a lot of the time their races are decided by only a couple hundred votes. And when Leaders We Deserve is able to put in several $100,000 to support those races, we really can make the difference. And that's what we try to do here. So if people want to help elect the next generation of Democrats that are not just younger versions of the people currently in power, Democrats that reject the influence of corporate PAC money, support campaign finance reform, and are willing to say what our party has needed to say for a long time, but has been far too unwilling to say because it pisses off donors, support our work at leaderswedeserve.com. Just with $1 or $2 a month can make a huge difference for us.
Amazing. And we're going to have to deal with it so much longer than all these people, It's we're in it for the long haul. Thank you so much, David. It was really nice to see you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Leaders We Deserve.
Yes. I know they're supporting, we didn't even get a chance to get to it, but they're supporting Graham Plattner. So we'll definitely have to have David back, as that sort of plays out, because I think at this point he's got the nomination, right?
Yeah, but you know what I saw that was interesting today?
What?
Our friend of the show, Representative Jake Auchincloss, who's been on more than once, has called on Graham Plattner to step down.
Why?
In the past couple of days. Yeah, I mean, over his tattoo, but it seems like an odd thing to take up now.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I know. And it feels like he's, the nominee. The other person here is Susan Collins. So interesting, right?
Well, I'll say this. One thing that I think is really interesting about Representative Auchincloss is he actually got his start in politics interning for Charlie Baker.
Oh, Massachusetts
governor who is a Republican, who is a never Trumper.
But people, I was going to say, people love Charlie. Even I was in Massachusetts when Charlie Baker was governor, and people loved him.
And I think it's also important to remember, Massachusetts had Mitt Romney as a governor who was fairly successful in some ways. And then they had Charlie Baker. So there's been sort of these much more now you would consider them liberal Republicans,
sure. Yeah.
right? So anyway, he interned for him. And, Susan Collins is, if you are in Congress and you are working on things that you want to get passed, Susan Collins is somebody to become friends with.
Well, he's in the House, not the Senate.
Right. But
so they probably won't work together on stuff.
But it's someone to be aligned with.
I don't know. I'm pretty side-eye. We can have him back on and ask him why. I would much rather personally know that Graham Plattner's in there. Susan Collins has consistently capitulated.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It
was interesting.
Also, especially now.
Right.
I feel like when Janet Mills was running, it would be the time to say,
different.
hey, I'm really putting my support behind her and whatever. I kind of love Janet Mills.
Oh, interesting. I love her for dropping out.
No, I like that she dropped out. But I also remember when she was fighting with Trump about trans kids in sports. I think it was, and she was just all the time.
Yeah.
Loved that. That would probably upset David though, because she's kind of more of an establishment. But anyway, what's having a moment for you?
Today David Sedaris' new book comes out.
Oh, fun.
And I just I get so much joy out of David Sedaris' writing. I'm so grateful that he's someone. He's like the Taylor Swift of New Yorker writers. He just churns them out.
Turns out another one.
And it never doesn't hit for me. It always makes me happy. And he's always funny and smart and out of control and ridiculous. And I will be going to my local bookstore to buy his new book. So
That's so
having a moment
fun.
for
I
me.
really want to get Yesteryear.
Oh,
A
yeah.
lot of
Everyone's
people are
reading-
talking
yes.
about that. I know.
Yeah.
I think that I'm going to do that before I go. I'll tell you what's having a moment for me. I'm going to Trending Up. And
Oh,
so
that's
I
right.
haven't, I'm getting excited to see people there. I was kind of like
Yeah.
getting ready over the weekend. Trending Up is this conference in DC with content creators from around the country. And it's a lot of fun. Last year when we were there, we had a great time, but my dog did die when we were there, which was
Traumatizing for
actually
everybody involved.
traumatizing for all of us. And anyway, I'm just excited to go back and hopefully not have a dog die so
Yeah.
I can kind of enjoy
For
myself
sure
a little
not.
bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really excited to go and like
Yeah,
see some
be
of
in
these peeps
DC.
who've been on the show. And yeah, so that's kind
Yeah.
of what's having a moment for me.
It is like seeing your FYP in real life. You're like, wow, all of these people. Going back to our first conversation about Hassan Pikers, one of the things that I've seen is some of those Trending Up people who were very, I think rightfully so, mad at the far left that was saying like, oh, like Kamala and Trump are the same. And a lot of people being like, Hassan, do you think that Kamala would have subpoenaed you for going to Cuba? Probably not. So I think they're having their own little moment running
Ooh.
laps. Yeah, I think that they are.
Can't he just say like, oh, I didn't know? Like, that's what I'd say. I just claim ignorance. I'd go, oh, I didn't realize that.
Have you met men? Have you met men? Have you ever had a man be like, living and learning,
Honestly, guys, you guys should play dumb more. What's that saying? Like, ask for forgiveness,
It's not permission.
That's
Yeah.
what I would do if I had gone to Cuba. I'd say, oh my God, I was like, literally, we were on this boat. Next thing I know, there's an island and I really needed to use the restroom. And I was like,
there I
well, we're
am.
here. Do you want some stuff? Like, I have all this stuff. Like, take some.
Take some stuff.
Yeah. And I had no idea that was good. That's how I
thought I was at the Bahamas.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's what I would do.
Yep.
Wait, do you know that song? Actually, this has like really been having a moment for me, but then I found out it was AI, and so I'm like not supposed to like it. First time in San Juan,
It's
capital of Puerto Rico.
It's AI.
Yeah,
Of course it's AI.
immediately was enchanted.
All right, everybody.
The whole plane.
Please,
clapped
if
when
you
we
don't
landed.
want AI telling you the news, please come subscribe to our show. Come.
Good morning, Molly.
Good morning, Molly.
Molly's hair. She's rise and shine.
Well, everybody come please subscribe to The Moment. We'll be back here on Friday. Actually, no, we'll be back here tomorrow. We're doing a bonus tomorrow.
yeah, we'll do a bonus probably from home. Bonus from home with Michael Tubbs.
Speaking of young people running for Congress, for office, not
really
Congress.
excited to talk with Michael Tubbs, who's running for lieutenant governor. And I can't wait to find out what lieutenant governor does. I'm pretty sure I know what the governor does, but the lieutenant governor, I was like, you know what? That's
I was going to ask him that too. That's so funny. It's like, well,
it's different in every state because in some states, don't you get to pick your lieutenant governor? Or like, is it always a race like this?
I don't know.
I think that like in some states it might be different.
Interesting.
I don't know that it's always like this.
Huh.
I don't know.
Well,
but I'm just making it up.
We're going to ask.
Whatever.
We're going to ask. And then Friday we have Peyton Dix. I have a theory that Beyonce's album's going to come out on Friday. So we'll have lots to
I
talk about
actually
there.
just got the first track. It goes like this. First time in San Juan, mi hijo, capital of, bye guys, Puerto Rico.